In fact, they're hearing you right now.
Okay.
No worries. Hi everyone, I'm Jordan Bateman, Director of Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association, the mighty ICBA, and I'm joined by Shinder Purewal, Political Science Professor at Kwantlen Polytechnic University and expert on all things Surrey politics. Yes, we will talk Surrey politics in a minute. Anything exciting happening in Surrey these days?
Certainly the municipal elections. So that's
yeah. Well, really, I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard that there was a municipal election coming up. So
a bit too early, but I think the players are getting into action. So.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about Surrey in a moment, but first we want to talk about proportional representation. Shinder, you and I co-authored a op-ed a few weeks ago, talking about some of the issues that we saw with Prop Rep. And one of the ones that you brought up, which didn't get a lot of play, but has been reinforced by a court filing that the ICBA has put in now, was the Clarity Act. So talk a little bit about how the Clarity Act should be shaping our view of this Prop Rep process.
Yeah, it came after the second Quebec referendum, basically 1995, because we had two referenda in Quebec. Both times the question was really complex, to say the least.
Yes.
When people were asked after the referendum, each referendum, they did not understand separation meant clear separation from Canada to have a sovereign different country. And the second issue was, can a simple majority, simply 50% plus one, decide the fate of a country that's been here for a century and a half, basically now. But back then, a long time, and the Supreme Court in its ruling gave two very clear positions. One was, if you're asking a question on referendum, it's a major issue, first of all. And the question has to be very clear. You can't ask a confusing question in the hope that people are so confused they will give you a mandate.
The answer of what you want.
Exactly.
Yes.
But they were so confused they did not give them mandate. Second issue was, should 50% plus one on a major issue be enough? And the Supreme Court ruling was no.
Right.
You should have a higher threshold.
Yeah.
Now we have a precedent in BC, 2005 and 2009, after a very lengthy citizenship assembly. People gave their input. They came up with a solution that STV would be their choice. And both times you had to reach 60%.
Right.
And there was very clear question.
Yes.
And both times it was done at the time of the election.
Exactly.
When people are actually out there. First of all, it's saving taxpayers money.
Yep.
Secondly, there is already an election, so you're not
built-in
setting
turnout.
up. So, and both first time they came close for 57%.
Yes.
But still, it was not meeting the threshold. So we're ignoring, first of all, the Supreme Court guidelines on Clarity Act. And secondly, our own convention, our own tradition. We are based on English common law.
Yep.
English common law, the basic proposition, basic premise is we work on conventions, we work on a precedent. And the government has basically violated that basic principle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, 05 and 09 did set out the process. It wasn't just 60%, it was 60%, plus you had to have 60% support in two-thirds of the ridings. Yeah, and that was to make sure that, the Lower Mainland was enforcing their will upon the rest of the province.
Yeah, and this, if you are living in the interior, on the island, different parts, you should know 60% of the population lives in Metro Vancouver. So they'll decide for you.
Yes.
If it's only 50% plus one.
And not surprisingly, they'll decide in favor of their own interests.
That goes without
nature.
saying.
Yeah.
And one of the issues, there are two major arguments being presented all the time in favor of PR. One is they say, well, there are parties who get 7%, 8%, 10%. And at the end of the day,
those poor babies, they need to be in the house.
Yeah, they need to be in the house.
Their voice hasn't counted.
Opinion of 10, 15, 20% is not counted.
Yeah.
But people should keep in mind, each PR system has a threshold.
Yes.
In BC, they're proposing 5%.
Correct.
So any party that is running below that threshold 4.5, let's say, will not get you a single MLA.
Yeah.
So if you have 3, 4, 5 parties, because you are going to have more parties. All PR systems have more parties because they're single issue parties.
Yeah.
So you will eventually have 15, 20% of the people who voted for these minor parties, but their selection does not count. Their vote doesn't count. So that's a number one sort of big myth is being created on. Second is they always say party that wins 40, 45% of the popular vote gets to form a majority
They
government.
get 100% of the power, Shinder. That's their
Then in PR systems, when you look at the parties, different systems, comparatively more in Europe, you should look at some of the parties who are getting in. Some of the parties with 7%, 13%, 19%, 21%.
Yeah. And taking a lead role as the governing coalition.
So there's an argument against 42%, but nothing that you have so many different parties who are not given a clear mandate by the people. So there goes your second major point. So people should keep that in account. This system has worked well in not only in BC, but English Commonwealth. And we haven't had major issues with the first past the post in all of the British Commonwealth.
Yeah, no, we haven't. And look, sometimes it works out for your side. Sometimes it doesn't. 1996, there were a lot of BC Liberals who were upset with the first past the post system because Glenn Clark won, or Gordon Campbell won 4 points more of the popular vote than Glenn Clark, but didn't form government because the vote was spread out. Did they whine and complain at the time? Yes, absolutely. That's what that's what led to STV. But conversely, this time around, a few years later, you had the Liberals win 77 seats out of the 79 with about almost 60% of the vote. So things balance out. There are always these outliers that happen. First past the post is not a perfect system by any definition, but the things that a lot of these guys are trying to address won't be addressed by moving to prop rep. My favorite faulty argument for prop rep is that it'll somehow ratchet down the power of the party bosses, when actually the complete opposite will happen.
The party bosses will be the most powerful in this PR system than they're in the first past.
Because at least half of the candidates will be selected by them, handpicked, rather than going to nomination races, rather than having people report out to local constituencies, they'll report only to the party bosses.
Exactly. It's in pure party lists, it's up to the party boss. Who are you electing? Who are you selecting? Who are you appointing? And what number are you on the list? If you're 87, you have no chance.
No, exactly. So there's problems with every system. I'll show you an interesting graphic here behind me, I think. Am I using the right one here? Hang on. Got to find the right...
Not yet.
There we go.
There we go.
So this was put out by the Fraser Institute today, and this is showing the 4 different systems that are on the ballot. And you'll recall that one of the things prop rep people like to say is that it's a very simple system. Well, here is first past the post, a system used in Canada, the United States, in England, among other places. You cast one vote for your candidate of choice. The candidate with the most votes wins the seat. Constituencies are represented by that candidate. Simple. These other 3 are the prop rep systems. And as you can see, they're anything but simple. In fact, these 2 over here, dual member proportional rural urban voting, have never been used anywhere in the world. They exist, no offense, but only in the minds of political scientists.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to say that, but yes, keep this in mind. Even after the referendum, they're not giving this choice to the people. It's just to legalize the government's own efforts.
Correct.
Because they are going to select some experts again.
Yes.
To come up with solutions. These may change.
Yes.
Scenarios may change.
Exactly.
Because they're experts, they're self-appointed.
Well, they'll have a committee, a parliamentary committee. And the NDP say it's an all-party committee. The truth is the NDP and the Greens will have the majority of the seats on there. So really it's a government committee that will decide all of the rules, the ridings, like all of the little nitpicky things that come along with the electoral system. They'll take these as basic principles, but what they deliver could be completely different than what we actually vote for.
Yeah, so what the real choice is, people are not going to be the decisive factor, except for choosing the first question.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That's a clear choice.
That's a clear choice. First past the post,
but
or some
that,
sort
it's
of
not clear.
prop rep. Yeah, no, exactly. So please vote for the current system. First past the post on your first ballot. Otherwise, you're going to get this kind of mess going on behind us. And, a lot of countries, or not a lot of countries, many countries do have some sort of mixed member proportional system, but they'll go months without governments. Germany is a great example. Angela Merkel, probably a world-class political talent, maybe the greatest politician of her generation in the world. And she cannot put together a governing coalition right now without help from the neo-Nazis.
They are actually at 13%.
Yeah.
The neo-Nazis control 13% of the seats.
Exactly. And we say here it can't happen here, but think back to your Canada Day barbecue, people. If you had 20 people there, was there one person there who had a crazy opinion? Now imagine that one person, 5% of your party, having seats in your legislature, making decisions for you.
Well, the real issue is like people think it builds consensus, the PR. It builds consensus once you have the elections.
Yeah.
The first past the post actually forces people with one issue to come together into a big tent before the elections. So you have to say, well, these 5 issues are important for me. These 10 issues or 2 issues are important for me. What other people I can unite with who can form sort of 40-45% majority. So the first past the post actually allows people to reach a consensus before the elections, not after the elections. That creates problem when you have Belgium with 514 days without a government. So that's
it's a long time. It's a long time not to have a politician responsible for what's going on in
in a situation, let's say like this. We have.
If you're a deputy minister or a bureaucrat, you love proportional representation because you're really running the show in between governments.
Exactly, and most of the time they run the government anyway. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's one of the little dirty secrets politicians have. Is
exactly.
When I was first elected to Langley Township Council, my dad, who worked in the city of Richmond, took me aside. He said, "Jordan, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Politicians need the staff a lot more than staff need the politicians. So you should always remember that." And I always did.
And they're there for life, and you are there for 3 years, 4 years.
Exactly. And then if they screw up, you're the one who gets turfed.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, which probably leads us to a nice segue to the Peter German report and the look into organized crime. David Eby had, from a political science point of view, I thought like a masterful news conference, the 13 minutes of video of people laundering money behind him as he, rips apart his political opponents. Like, you got to hand it, the stagecraft on that was unbelievable.
Yeah, the people who look at the crime issue, I think the main issue for them becomes when a drug dealer gets shot.
Yes.
Really behind this whole crime is the money laundering issue.
Yeah.
Money laundering is the biggest issue. No country, I was reading a report by CIA expert, he said 98% of money laundering we cannot control. With all the best efforts of the US and the international community, they can control up to 2%. So you can just imagine the web of these criminals. They're either in weapon smuggling, drug smuggling nowadays, real estate and other things. Casinos become sort of more legalized. It's the way the underworld works.
Yeah. In fact, some of the people trumpeting this report now, because they pointed out organized crime links in the past, were the same people who made arguments against expanding the casino business in British Columbia. And they based it on the fact that casinos in other jurisdictions were known for being a magnet for money laundering.
It is.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You're basically giving legal channels to organized crimes to launder their money, to make it more legal, what they call white.
Yes.
And casinos is sort of one avenue. There are other avenues.
Yeah.
We need sort of more broader view and mandate for a new commission or a new investigation to find out what other sectors are actually impacted by this.
Yeah.
People from time immemorial, they find ways out.
Yeah.
You have laws, and then they have minds to break those laws.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Peter German, who wrote that report, is also now working on one on real estate, which...
Then at least partially, because it's not going to be entirely, but partially it will explain the red hot market in Metro City here, but also metros across North America. Yeah. It's not just a Vancouver problem.
No, it's not just a Vancouver problem. We promised we'd talk about Surrey politics.
Indeed.
Tom Gill has, since the last time we talked, secured the Surrey First nomination for mayor, beating out 4 of his colleagues who also wanted to be the mayoralty candidate. I guess they all just voted for themselves, and then Linda broke the tie, maybe. I don't know. But Gill will be the Surrey First candidate. And of course, there's the rumors that Rich Coleman may run for mayor as well. We see a lot in the Surrey. Is it called the Now? Or the Surrey News Leader, Now News, or Now Leader, or whatever they called it. The two became one. We see a bit of coverage in the province and the Sun. But can you tell me what's going on kind of in the South Asian media? What's the discussion around Surrey politics, especially municipally at this point?
Particularly after this, there are 2 youngsters who were killed.
Yeah.
There's a lot more focus on the criminal activities, especially drug dealing, and the issue of policing in Surrey. Policing, keep in mind, was Surrey First. In fact, Diana Watts, she gave a new contract to RCMP.
Yes.
One of the issue with RCMP is it's really not conducive for community policing.
Right.
You don't have the recruitment from the community. You don't have people who will live in the community forever, or who actually grew up in those neighborhoods, who would know some stuff. Nothing against the RCMP, but that's not.
It's not the way they're structured.
That's how their main issues are federal in nature.
Yeah.
But she did it, and I think the Surrey First got a lot of blame for this. And secondly, affordable housing.
Yeah.
It's an issue. There are a lot of international students now. There are 500,000 in Canada at this moment. We got about 120,000 in BC alone. So you got in Surrey, you have a basement going for $1,600, and that's going to be an issue for the people who can't afford housing, and you can't even afford renting. That's a big issue for working people. Third issue is always transport. It's a distant third, but it's there. The one issue was on the transit route they chose, there were no discussions.
Nope.
Surprisingly, they asked for discussions on the issue of peacocks.
Yes, but not on light rail versus SkyTrain.
Which would cost millions and millions of dollars. So you would want some discussion, some feedback on a major project like the transport. But peacocks can be dealt with without discussions.
Yes, I believe so.
But that's the Surrey First, the way of doing business. And then there is a perception, at least, Surrey First controlled city council. It only caters to very few individuals who are big business people in development industry. And when you cater only few developers who have links with the city council and the staff, other people are harassed. There's no transparency, there's no accountability. If you walk into the Surrey Council, actually the Surrey City Hall, you wouldn't know where to begin if you're building one house, or even if you're trying to renovate your own house, an extension somewhere. But if you are a big developer who has links inside, you don't need to go to City Hall. All the work can be done over the phone. So these are the issues. I think there's a lot of sort of turmoil in the people's minds, how to manage crime, how to bring more affordable housing, transport, and also how to make Surrey City Hall more accountable, more transparent, so people can think this is like in Canada, it's not a third world city hall.
Yeah. I think there's a desire for change sweeping across the region, and I think a lot of incumbent mayors have realized and stepped out.
I think they've, politicians are smart enough to do.
Politicians hate to lose. So.
Unless you're Ontario Premier, a Liberal Premier, she didn't understand, she didn't read the polls and still hoping for something miraculous. But didn't happen. But most of the mayors, I think, or most of the incumbents, even councillors, have realized there's a change in the air, in fact. And what kind of change we will know at the time of elections.
No, absolutely. I know even in Langley, there is a sense that things are going pretty well in Langley, but we should probably change stuff anyways. Which is kind of the feeling.
Surprisingly, you will find that entire region will face that. One municipality cannot sustain its own old ways of doing things. If there's a wave of change, if there's a wave, people showed little interest because lowest turnout is always at the municipal level. And it's irony of the whole thing, 60 to 70% of your services are actually by the local government.
Yeah.
So people need to get out, and politicians are always afraid of that. That's why they didn't want a referendum, this PR referendum on election day at the municipal election level.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So
they didn't want to encourage any more voters to come out.
Can you imagine politicians of a democracy are afraid of the people showing up at the polls?
I know they are, yeah.
But in political science, we always hope for the high turnout.
Yeah.
We always hope that you hold your politicians accountable, make them transparent.
We tried to do the TransLink referendum tax at the same time as the municipal elections. That's what was Christy Clark's promise, and the mayors fought her off on it, delayed, so that it'd have to be a more expensive mail-in ballot after. Ironically, for them, it might have turned out to be a little bit better for them if they'd done it in conjunction with the election, because maybe we've had some happy people actually turn out and vote, but who knows?
Yeah, but even on TransLink, you see that they tried to do everything to make sure the TransLink is able to raise taxes.
Yes.
Confuse the people as much as possible, hoping
didn't
for
call
the best.
it didn't even mention TransLink on the ballot.
And I can read the same thing in PR.
Yeah.
PR referendum is simply confuse people, make it more complex, do it in a way that people don't return, and people who are actually for it will return their ballots. There's one thing always politicians hope for. It's never 100% certain that'll be the case.
That's true.
In 1952, 53, we had STV. 52, liberals and conservatives actually brought that system to keep CCF out.
Yeah.
Okay, who were kept out for the next 50 years? Liberals and conservatives.
Yes, exactly.
So it may not work out for NDP Green. They're hoping for this, and I can tell you people have power. In democracy, that's people actually count. Their opinions count. And I'm hopeful they'll teach them a lesson.
Absolutely. All right, Shinder Purewal, thanks for joining us.
Okay. Nice.
Where can people follow you on Twitter? Do you tweet?
I do.
What's your Twitter handle? Is it
Shinder Purewal?
I think so. Just search for it.
Simple.
I'll tweet something interesting. I'll retweet it, and then people can find
All right.
it. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, and we will be back soon with another ICBA conversation soon.